I was watching a movie this morning. I have no idea what it was. Just turned on the television, so it's just but it was one of those. It was near the end of the movie where the guy and the girl they were going to kiss. So I was kind of interested in watching the scene of how it's going to happen. That she was moving towards him and he was moving towards her, and you knew they were going to end up with a kiss. And so it just suddenly occurred to me. I said, it might have hit me, because it's like maybe I realized that it's Sunday. I'm going to come and give a Dharma talk, and I'm desperate. What the hell am I going to talk about? I'm getting so tired of this, And so I'm making some of that up, not all of it. So anyway, but it, I don't know why it occurred to me, but it just thought, well, okay, so we're always talking about mindfulness. So I thought, okay, so let me just sort of step out of the movie here to see what that's like, right? So I'm watching the movie and I'm interested in seeing how they kiss, how they get to it, So I decide, okay, what's it like now to step out of the movie for a moment? You all have heard me talk about this many times. So how did I step out of the movie? How did I step out of that moment? It's kind of like they were both attractive and it was very sweet. And some music was playing. So how did I step out of that moment, or out of that getting caught in that entertainment? So I just observed the self. I just went back to observing, and it's kind of hard to say what that is, really, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of like, it isn't mysterious, and the truth is, it's not very hard. Are you observing yourself right now, or are you in the movie? How many people are in the movie right now? I'm the movie, okay? How many people are in the movie? I mean, I'm pretty hard to shut out. Let's face it. I'm attractive. I got a nod. Well, not so attractive. Okay, no, but I mean, but just think about that, okay? So, in other words, you really have the opportunity this moment, and you who are watching on YouTube, you have the opportunity this moment to be doing what I did this morning, watching the movie. I thought, let's step out of this just for a minute. It's like you can get lost the rest of your life as you will, but let's just step out for a minute. And so all I did was I just watched her and him, and I watched them, but I just watched this watcher. It's just amazing, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's so that, and of course, unfortunately, it becomes less interesting. That's the downside of it. It's a good way to waste your money if you're going to, if you're spending money on a movie, right? Sit there and go to a good movie and say, okay, I'm just going to watch The Watcher. Hell, $10 wasted, or $12. But anyway, so I'll go back and do it again. So what's it like to be watching the self watching? I love that. You tried so hard. Allison tried so hard not to smile, but it's good. But anyway, it's so. Robert, are you watching Robert?
Not really.
Is he? How's he doing?
Not bad, right?
So that's all I wanted to share with you all today, and I have to go home now because there's a movie that I've been watching, and there's this guy and this girl, and they're getting ready to kiss pretty soon, and I want to get home and I want to see them. I wouldn't begin to try to explain, meaning, that sounded rather pompous. I wouldn't begin to try to explain what it means to watch the self, because that's one of the greatest mysteries of all time. We talk about watching the self, and so, John, are you watching the self? I mean, it's like, You know, like in Buddhism, there's this, or in Hinduism too, but certainly mostly in Buddhism, this most important term, nama rupa, nama rupa, nama rupa. I always think of Mona Lisa, the song, Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa. Oh God, I need to go home. But nama rupa, nama rupa, nama rupa. That's such an extraordinarily important phrase. Nama means mind, or the mental part of what you are, or what this is. And you know, it's interesting because the literal translation of that word in Sanskrit, nama, is name. What is it that gives everything a name? One of the wonderful sayings of somebody said it, I don't know who said it. They said, what is it, I loved it. What is it that names everything but can't be named? What is it that gives a name to everything but you can't really name it? And when they say you can't name it, of course we know that word, but it's that, the very thing that names it is it, the mind. Or it's the mind, stupid, right? The mind. So nama is that which names, that in you which names everything. This is a tree, this is a bird, this is Sue, this is Victor, this is the bowl. And rupa is the physical, the material part and the mental part, nama rupa. So when someone says, you know, so when you're watching a little movie tonight, or watching just take a moment and stepping out and watch the self. And then I go back to what I said. It's easier said than done because, you know, no one has ever really been able to say what the self is. It's never been said. Is the self nama rupa? Is that what it is to some extent? You know, body, mind. Is that the self? So I would not presume to have an answer for that. So there was something that I wanted to share with you that's kind of related to watching the self. I can't remember who's. I don't know if it was Krishnamurti. I can't remember who said that mindfulness is watching the self. That's the definition of mindfulness. You know, like we have this tendency to think that mindfulness is, you know, observing something outside. You know, paying attention, or even to the breath. Turning to the breath. That's mindfulness, or you know, or sensations in the body. But perhaps the best definition of mindfulness is watching the self. So anyway, so I had lunch with a very, very dear person who has been a member of our Sangha for many years. And they're still dear. I don't know how that could happen. And so she said, she was at the yoga, we did a retreat at Yokaji, Zen Mountain, Zen Monastery. Froze our behinds off up there in the mountain. Allison was there. You don't remember, do you? I've completely forgotten. You got it out of your mind. Anyway, so I had lunch with someone who was at the retreat, and so we're sitting having lunch, and she said, can you please remember that Dharma talk you gave? She said, it was a bomb. I mean, I meant that in a good word. I mean, you know, at my age, when someone says it's a bomb, I think it's bad. But nowadays, it's a bomb. Apparently, it's good. She says it was really wonderful. Now, the idea, you know, that 3 years ago I could remember I said, well, what do you think it was about? She said, I think it was something about Krishnamurti. Something, you know, because I go through these periods where, you know, I fall in love with these people. I go through a Krishnamurti phase about every 3 years. And I think he's, you know, just the cat's meow, the bomb. And then, or Nisargadatta, of course. There are a few people who are always the bomb to me, and Nisargadatta is one of them. And Krishnamurti is definitely one of them. So anyway, so I gave a Dharma talk at Yokaji apparently, and that was like, she said it was, she still remembers it, and she would just love if I could tell her what it was about. And I said, well, do you remember anything about it? She said, I think it was about the mind, which I thought was very funny because I'm always talking, it's like if I'm not talking about Krishnamurti, I'm talking about the mind. So anyway, so I had this vague recollection that we videotaped some of those talks. So I went to my desktop, which is the same thing as saying I went into the land of chaos. It's astonishing. And there it was. But unfortunately, I was basically referring to the previous talk the night before, which apparently was the one that was the bomb, because this one was just I was still talking about Krishnamurti, but I didn't really get into whatever it meant. But it was what was fascinating was that, so I sat through that video. It's always a little torturous for me to sit and watch because I am so relentlessly attention deficit disorder, right? And so I'm always moving. So, so what was fascinating was I kept referring to this passage, right? And so I open the book, and then I read what Krishnamurti said. I mean, literally, the last 7 seconds of the video. I mean, it's just astounding. I mean, I read the passage and it ends, right? So, but what was nice, but it reminded me of what the passage was. I was very grateful for that because I have referred to it in the past, couldn't find the passage, and so I found it. So I'm going to read it to you all. Right? Are you excited? How many people are excited? I am. I'm excited because who knows? I mean, I won't remember what it is. It's actually rather. I may read other things too because this book is full of pithy little things. Senzaki's last words in he died in 1958, for instance. That's on the other page. That one is good too. All right, so I'm going to quit this. I'm entertaining myself because I need to be entertained. So, so I'm going to read that. So I'm going to set it up by telling you so this was the little image that I shared with everyone at Yokaji, and shared this, and this was the setup to this passage, and I thought about it as I was watching that video, and then I was thinking about you all, and then today I'm thinking about today. We're sitting here today, and the bell rings, and we close our eyes. Right? And what do we do? What are you supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Watch the self. 45 minutes, you're going to sit and watch the self for 45 minutes. Well, good luck, So this was the image that I came up with after, and as I said, this has been sort of like maybe a couple of years of reading Krishnamurti. I would go through a period where I'll read him over and over and over, 6 or 7 or 8 books. And so I was saying to everybody at Yokaji, I said, imagine that you walk into this room, sort of maybe like the Library of Congress, very beautiful, kind of awe-inspiring. 3 stories, 3 stories high, it's the ceiling. Beautiful stacks of books and all the, there's mahogany tables, it's quiet. And you sit and you have this ancient book in front of you, right? This ancient book. And so you're sitting there, and the root, there's this tremendous feeling of almost the sacred in a place like that. You have this ancient book, and you're approaching it with this respect, profound respect, because this book has tremendous truth in it, and you know that it does. And so you open the book, and you start to read. and you read it carefully, and you read it mindfully, and you read it with energy, and perhaps with that energy comes certain calmness and perhaps concentration. These factors of awakening. But anyway, so you read this book, and Krishnamurti, this is just literally his word, as he said over and over and over. You read every sentence of your mind. You read every word of your mind. You read it all the way to the very end of the sentence. So I said at this retreat, I said, what if what we're doing is that book, that ancient book, is our mind? That's what we're supposed to be reading all the time, over and over. Reading our own mind. And then you would say, well, how do you do that? Then I would say, well, do you have any thoughts coming? Do you ever have any thoughts coming through your mind? Urges, desires, aversions coming through your mind? Stories? How many people have stories coming through their mind? Right. For instance, like that might last 2 days, 3 days, 4 weeks, 10 years. We could have a story that could last so easily a month, certainly. Yeah? Does anybody doubt that? So what we have to read is that manuscript that we carry around with us every moment. Every moment. And there's a enormous resistance to doing it because, when I said because, I thought I was going to know the reason, but it didn't come. I said because there's enormous resistance to that. Let me try it again. There's enormous resistance to that because something is not interested in looking at itself. I mean, it ain't even remotely interested in looking at itself. It's interested in looking at everything else. It doesn't matter anything. Oh my God, it's a flea. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's interested in watching everything but itself. Isn't that true? So it's like it could. You could. I mean, I've told you all many times sitting with clients before. Sitting, getting a little bit bored and thinking, I think I'll go have an In-N-Out burger, after this session. And I mean, that can be the most extraordinarily interesting thought in the world. My whole body can feel, this tremendous sensation. And I can picture just because my office is right before the bridge going over Naples, going over the bridge. But it doesn't matter what the thought is. It's just the most fascinating thing in the world, isn't it? Oh my God, right? It's like, did you ever have a non-fascinating thought? I mean, come on, let's just face it, I mean, so if you develop this ability, according to Krishnamurti, to become this student of your own thoughts, then you would be able to work through that resistance, right? I mean, just by definition, if you understand, if you have any resistance to being a student, right, you have to get to the bottom of it and you see what the resistance is, but you work through it. And you begin to become interested in closing your eyes and not watching the breath. I mean, that's fine, right? But not watching the breath, not watching the sensations of your bottom on the cushion, which is just fine and which is very good. Not counting the breath, not trying to slow down, not trying to concentrate, trying to watch the way the mind endlessly moves from one thing to another thing, just tracking it. It's trying to hang on, I picture like this old wagon, covered wagon, and someone hang out in the back, and it going around the mountain trail, and you're hanging on as best you can, and it knocks you off. More often than not, you lose. You let go, and then you're lying down in the gully, and there goes the wagon. It's gone. So then maybe let's say like maybe someone woke you up for a minute, right? In the while you're sitting, or you hear some noise on the street, wakes you up. Oh, ooh, what was I doing? What was my meditation on? Was I counting my breath? Was that it? No. I'm in this library. I'm in this great library, reading this ancient manuscript. The source of all knowledge. The source of all knowledge. And you just get back up and you grab hold of that wagon again. You grab a hold. And it may be, I want, or it doesn't matter what it is, but you grab hold and then you watch and you stay with it again. And I think that this is like that whole thing of, I think I've told you all a long time ago, I used to be shocked when I first became attracted to Buddhism so long ago, because I, like so many people, was a refugee from other other religions. But I became, so I came rather shocked to read that faith, even in Buddhism, is that the practice begins with having a certain amount of faith. And so I didn't understand that for a long, long, long time, and so I do now. In other words, what is it that gets you to get out of that gully and climb up, on the bank and grab a hold of that wagon again? If it's not faith, that holding on to that wagon eventually is going to take you somewhere. You're just not going to do it otherwise. I mean, I'm sure that's true, because we're just not going to do it otherwise. There has to be that element of faith that says, I believe that people who have done this have had extraordinary experiences. Anybody who's seen a video of Krishnamurti, you don't question. I don't. This guy's in quite a space. he's in quite a space. And and certainly this is what he did. He read his mind. He read it relentlessly, year after year after year. I don't know that he got kicked off the wagon, but maybe he did. So I'm going to read this little thing that he wrote, but I wonder if I can find it. Probably not. And so we could make this the beginning of a Dharma talk, right? I could read this and then we can all sit and talk about it for 30 minutes. We could. And I'm not suggesting that we won't, but I'm just saying that it's so profound. You want to talk about getting knocked off the wagon. It's so profound in a way to get our minds around what he said, what he suggests. So, I guess I'll just read it. I thought I was going to say something intelligent. Sometimes I just wait for something intelligent to come out. I just sit with confidence, right? That doesn't happen. So he says, so he's talking about having an empty mind. The empty mind cannot be purchased at the altar of demand. He has a way of saying things kind of like fancy. You can't purchase it at the altar of demand. So in other words, you can't force your mind to be empty, right? You can sit down in your chair, and so Lisa comes in. Well, I'm going to have an empty mind today. Or Janine, or Victor. Okay, you can't do that. It's not. That's part of the problem. It's kind of maybe the tragedy. It's like the emptiness that apparently is related to. I'll just add this. This is like me just giving you a little pithy pieces of truth. It is apparently so that according to all of these people who have had experiences of enlightenment, that seeing reality comes from a mind being empty. Doesn't seem to happen otherwise. A mind that is not empty gets caught in reality, gets stuck in it, right? Gets attached to it, grabs it, right? So it would have to be this empty mind that is seeing without grasping. If you don't grasp, you can see. I mean, if I get too close to you and grab, then I can't really see. But if there's this distance, we can see. But anyway, that was just kind of like I just threw that in there. I don't even know it's true. Maybe I made that up. The empty mind cannot be purchased at the altar of demand. Okay, so we got that. We all get that. So then he says, it comes into being emptiness, or sunyata, which would be like about Mahayana Buddhism, would moved into this experience of profound emptiness, sunyata. It comes into being when thought is aware of its own activity. I love watching your face, Alice. Like she heard that right, and then your eyes went up, and I wonder what. But I mean, it's an extraordinary sentence, right? Emptiness happens. It's an event. It happens when thought becomes aware of its own activity. Now, how is that possible? And how is that possible? I mean, I do think that he's saying something that is almost on the verge of being from the unconditioned, meaning that it's almost like impossible to put something like that into words. The other way of saying it is when, and this is going to sound like 100 times less profound, but it's the same thing. But I was reading a Tibetan teacher who just said, I just read this just last night. He said that when you see that a thought is empty, you are, and then again, your mind, when you see the emptiness of a thought, when you see, or essentially when you see that a thought is not real. But if you're sitting and your mind gets still and your mind gets quiet, and then something starts happening, right? Because then the thoughts subside. So then something about a kind of grasping and kind of an agenda starts leaving, and then this me starts getting quieter and quieter and quieter. You could call it mindfulness. I don't know if you want to call it mindfulness, but it's the only thing you can say is it's seeing. It's not thinking. It's not thinking. It's not thinking, oh, that's a thought. It's just seeing. Seeing is absolutely pure insight. That at a certain point, something occurs that just allows you to see the activity of thought. Connected. One is linked, one is linked, one is linked, one is linked, one is linked. And in that seeing of that, there will also be aware there is no person doing that. There's no me creating that. It's occurring, right? What happens if you have that experience is the mind goes empty. It goes absolutely quiet. Because it's the only way it's the only way it prevents itself from being quiet, right? I mean, because in other words, how does it keep itself going? How does it keep itself alive in a sense? The me, I want, I need, I am. We do this by this relentless linking of thought. That's the way that we keep the illusion of self together. We're amalgam of thought, right? I mean, all of the little thoughts come together. But so what he's saying is, if there's a moment that thought sees itself, that's literally what it means. It's good. So then you say, well, wait a minute. What does that mean? If thought sees itself, how could thought see itself? you want me to answer that question? How can thought see itself? And if it's possible that thought can see itself, can see what it is, it's one of the most extraordinary assertions, I guess I would just say. It's an extraordinary suggestion. And this is, Krishnamurti is the guy who says it. And I'm not so sure that I've ever really read it in Buddhism. This is like, he was a Western guy. He came from, he's Indian, but it's an extraordinary certainty because he said it in other ways too. But he says over and over that thought must see itself, not me, not this little person, right? Not this idea of me, but this pure thought that is not connected to ignorance. Are you waving?
I am. I have a thought.
I'm almost finished. So as I said when I started, this could be actually the beginning of we're ending because I'm not going to do this anymore. It's extraordinarily difficult, and so my wish is that you would just kind of chew on this like an old cow. I wish you would just chew on that. What does that mean? That silence begins when thought sees its own activity, not when you see your own activity. When thought sees its own activity, the mind becomes still. And then preceding that is what I was saying is that you get there by this aspiration to be in this library. When we're sitting here together, we're in the Long Beach Meditation Library, opening the book, reading, thought. And at some point, it will see and it will become still.